Good evening and welcome to the show. You're listening to me, Gershwell Brooks, here on 919. Wonderful to be in your company and great tunes that I was listening to driving in. And of course, we had a bit of Savage Garden there as an intro to the show. And stick around because we will definitely be playing you some of the hits. But of course, you know, this is the Legal Lifeline where we do quite a bit of talking, but talking that you do enjoy. We talk about all things legal. And tonight, I made a bit of a joke earlier when I posted and announced the show. I think that the Legal Lifeline needs to change to, sorry for the interference, I don't know what I did there. The Legal Lifeline actually needs to change to the reunion show. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's a reunion once more. So sitting across from me is Advocate Asad Saiter, from none other than the chambers that I practice out of, the South African Bar Association. And the two of us have a very long history. I know you're tired of hearing that, but this is the actual truth, because me and this man met each other in the year of our Lord, 1995, when we won our first Rugby World Cup in grade 7. We were two little boys who had very different dreams, and lo and behold, here we are, both of us legal practitioners. Good evening to you, Asad, and thank you for joining me.
Hi, good evening, Gershwell. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Only a pleasure, brother. And do you remember that once upon a time, I think I had dreams of being a Michael Jackson one day, and you had dreams of being the next Bill Gates. Do you remember those days?
Yeah, I remember those days. I think before this newly acquired dream of becoming the next Michael Jackson, you aspired to be I think it was a vet or something, because the first day I met you, until today, I will never forget, you were speaking about the spotted harlequin.
The spotted harlequin.
Till today,
you remember that?
I remember it. How many years ago was that? 95, 2005, 2025. Oh, it was a long time ago. Hey?
Very
I remember the first day this guy, he just refused to stop talking about 50-50 and the spotted harlequin and this bird and that bird. I thought you were going to become like a nature conservationist or something of that sort.
Hey, look, I was very close to that. And I dare say, as a result, that's why I ended up with so many exotic pets at some stage, where I've kept snakes. I've had up to 20 snakes at some stage.
I had the unfortunate experience of meeting one of your snakes.
And so on. But now I'm just down to a couple of fish tanks. That's as exotic as I'm going.
That's more safe.
Yeah, it's a little safer, and I guess less work, or they're more in your face. Even though it's more work, you have to do the work. If that makes sense. But listen, welcome and thank you for chatting to me this evening, and obviously.
Yeah, this day has finally arrived. I thought I'd outrun you for the rest of my life, and then finally you caught up to me and you dragged me to radio.
If the listeners could only know how long I've been trying to get you on air, guys. For your WhatsApps, 084. I swear to you, I had it here in front of me. 084-221-2919. Let's do that again. 084-221-2919. That's where you can pop me your WhatsApps, whether it be a text message, alternatively a voice note. Either of those two would be appreciated, because tonight what we're talking about is something very interesting, and I think something that we all too often take for granted, and that's the notion or the idea of cyberbullying. So I think by now a lot of you know that I actually have a history with the South African Human Rights Commission. I used to be the communications lead for the South African Human Rights Commission many moons ago. And so, hate speech was one of the key and the biggest things that we had to deal with at the South African Human Rights Commission. And all too often, I'm a firm believer in the right to freedom of expression, except for when you cross the threshold into hate speech. And we can have that conversation at another time. So my assumption was always that your conduct online, provided that it doesn't cross over into hate speech, should be okay. But now, obviously, with Facebook, Twitter, now called X, and all kinds of other social media, people find themselves foul on a regular basis. and they commit what we call cyberbullying. So maybe we should start off with a definition of cyberbullying. To my understanding, Asid, I mean, is cyberbullying something as simple as, do I have to go as far as, say, hate speech, or is there a different threshold for it?
Okay, in general, the term cyberbullying itself was first coined by a gentleman called Bill Belty. Essentially, what cyberbullying is, it involves the use of information and communication technologies to support a deliberate, repeated, and hostile behavior by an individual or groups of individuals, and it is intended to harm others. That essentially defines the concept of cyberbullying. I mean, back in the day, just prior to coming onto air, you and I were discussing, the old-fashioned way of being bullied, right? In school, these punk kids used to come up to us and shout us and fight with us and pick on us and things like that. Unfortunately, fortunately, with the advent of technology, right? I mean, back in the day, the phones we had were incapable of accessing the internet. These were just your hello, how are you phones. I think the most advanced feature on the phone was SMS and the snake game. That's about it.
Dude, and I didn't even have a phone in high school. My first phone was first year varsity, 2001. That's when I finally got a phone.
My first phone was those Nokia 2110s, those bricks, that in itself was a regulated weapon. You could kill a person with that. It was big. You put it in your pocket, your entire pants,
trouser falls out.
Your trouser would fall out. That's how big it was. We didn't have. Okay, let's go back 25 years ago. We didn't have this issue of cyberbullying. But as technology has progressed, obviously, it's now made it easily accessible for children, right, to access the internet and to access social media. Mentioning the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook, X, where you can interact not only with your friends, you can interact with people across the continent, across the world.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we live in a society where everybody has their opinion about everything. And what you innocently might post online thinking it would reach an understandable audience, some people use it as an opportunity to pick on you. They use it as an opportunity to poke fun at you and to start some form of hate speech. These are these online cyberbullies that we are referring to.
Yeah.
Right? And there's instances in South Africa, all across the world, where children, predominantly children, are bullied by these cyberbullies. And these cyberbullies are not even in the same room or the same country. They're in continents apart.
Yeah.
And however, technology has made it so accessible for people to, within split seconds, to communicate with each other and to interact with each other. And unfortunately, this whole new cybercrime, if I may refer to it, has developed into cyberbullying.
So, once upon a time, going back to the notion of freedom of expression, the best explanation, and I can't remember who it is, so I need to remember who it is so I can credit the person correctly. But nonetheless, this person said to me that the reason why we have freedom of expression is to protect expression that we don't like. So in other words, I have an issue with the president, I have an issue with a former president, I have an issue with some political party or a person, a prominent person, right? Someone that we know that has power, etc. I say something about that person that's typical. My apologies. There was my little faux pas there. The point that I was making is that I go out there and I say something that is unkind about this particular individual. I don't have to be worried about having some weird consequence that I end up in prison because of what I said about a particular political leader. So in other words, the whole idea, the whole notion of freedom of expression is to protect the very speech, the very expressions, the very things that we don't like, the things that we don't ordinarily want to hear. And that is why we need freedom of expression. You don't need freedom of expression when all that we ever say to each other is, I love you and I care for you and I think that you're a really awesome person. We need freedom of expression because we say we hate the president, we don't like this political party, we don't like this or the other thing or the other. So what I'm getting at is, how then do we, for lack of a better term, then balance that right, where I can say what you wouldn't necessarily appreciate or like to hear, with the idea that ultimately I should be able to say whatever the heck, where I need to also be mindful of saying something that's going to hurt your feelings or that's going to somehow do harm to you. That's the balancing act that I want to sort of. I hope I gave it some form of articulated argument.
No, you've summed it up quite succinctly in the sense that yes, we have the right freedom of expression. You can express your views, and I can express my dissatisfaction with your views.
Exactly.
Right now, there's a certain line which unfortunately gets crossed when expressing your point of view or your opinion on a matter. And unfortunately, when that line is crossed, it falls within the ambit of a crime. Especially, let's put it into perspective. Let's look at the situation where, for example, I post something online, right? And then you respond, and you respond in a very demeaning manner, and you start using it as an opportunity to attack me on a personal level.
Sure.
Right. Once upon a time, there were no laws, or there were laws which had to be developed in order to protect me and my my right to freedom of expression in the online sphere. Things have obviously evolved as far as the law is concerned, because remember, the law, we're living in an ever-changing world. So with the advent of technology and easily access to the internet, our laws, these archaic laws, could not accommodate for protection of an individual, and it had to be developed. New laws had to be developed in order to protect individuals and their respective rights. More so in this instance, the right to freedom of expression.
So put differently, so what are you saying? What you're ultimately saying is that our laws around defamation, for example, criminal injuria, right? What else is there that I'm thinking of? Hate speech. Are you then suggesting that those three laws that ultimately regulate expression in some shape or form? Because, I mean, I can still commit criminal injuria without necessarily saying anything. I can still be defamatory without necessarily saying anything. I could, for example, publish a defamatory or libelous news article about you. I could post something on social media that's defamatory about you, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that those three laws, or and whatever else comes with it, were they not good enough to then regulate the space and to say that, listen, all that we have to do is we have to, if Asad posts something on social media, that we need to check whether it's hate speech, whether it is defamatory, or whether it is criminal injuria. And if it doesn't meet the threshold for any one of those three, let's go and move on. It's not a cybercrime, or it's not cyberbullying. So what you're saying is that was the problem. And so, in other words, we need a new definition to say that this is cyberbullying that might not be covered by those three regulations or regulatory spaces for how we express ourselves.
You see, the underlying crime, let's look at criminal injuria, for example. We we've got mechanisms and instruments now at our disposal in which we can use to define the elements of the crime. And once that has been defined, it ties in with the common law. For example, crimen injuria. The basic elements of crimen injuria has not changed with the introduction of, let's say, for example, the Cybercrimes Act, right, which regulates to a great extent our online presence, right? It provides tools which we as practitioners could use in order to determine if a crime has been committed. And then once that has been established, we would resort to our normal common law and our current statutory instruments, for example, the Criminal Procedure Act, in order to prosecute a person for, if depending to what extent to the extent of the cyberbullying.
Sure.
I would just like to touch on two cases which I dealt with. One fairly recently.
Can I do this? Let's park that one for just a few, because of course this is where we do play the hits. Shane coming through via WhatsApp saying the following: love the subject of discussion. Important conversations, particularly now when someone's AI agent can bully, taunt, do hate without them even needing to be there. Must be so difficult to be a youngster in the 2020s. As someone who had their teens in the 1980s, cheers and have a great evening. Shane, thank you so much for coming through. And of course, we still welcome all of those WhatsApps coming through, even voice notes. Let us know what it is that you're thinking about. And this stuff affects you. I mean, I think, in fact, by mere virtue of you sending us a WhatsApp, it's a clear indication of the fact that you're online in some shape or form.
Yes.
It's a form of social media, albeit that you need to, obviously need to have the person's number ordinarily. But the point that I'm ultimately making is that this is a form of social media. This is something that can impact you directly through cyberbullying. But more importantly, I said it's something that you touched on. And there was how children are exposed. I mean, you mentioned the social media platforms. My biggest concern is none of my children, we've made the decision in the family. My kids are too young for social media. They're too young for phones. My eldest has an iPad purely because the school required it at the time. But is there any ability to speak to other people? There's no WhatsApp on it. There's no social media and that type of stuff. However, every now and again, you get a game on the PS. And that particular game can connect online. And while playing said game, comments can be made, things can be said.
Yes.
And all too often, it's a 45-year-old man on the other side of the world that's playing a kiddies game that could, beyond the sexual grooming and all those things that we're worried about, could actually hurt your child because of what they're saying online. So there's many elements to this. So I'd really like us to touch on those specifics, just in just a few. But of course, as you know, folks, this is the Feel Good Station. I've got something lined up for you, something that Asad will remember from back in the day, and he'll probably jam to it as well.
Back in the day. You're making it sound as if though I'm ancient.
Both of us are ancient, brother. But of course, he looks a lot more handsome than I do. So sit back, relax, enjoy the music, and then we come back and don't forget that we need to touch on those two cases. So Asad, you and I, before we obviously took our musical break, and that, by the way, was Don't Stop Till You Get Enough by Michael Jackson, off his 1979 album, Off the Wall, which is definitely one of my favorite albums of his of all time. It was his first solo album as an adult, by the way, and that was what created the pathway. I remember many years ago when I read his autobiography, he was very upset that he only won 1 Grammy for that particular album. I'm sure that there's many artists that would, on their debut album, would love the idea of winning even just one, but it upset him deeply that he only could win the one Grammy. So yeah, and that's a bit of a throwback, and Asad knows why, because I used to be I used to be a Michael Jackson fanatic. I'm too embarrassing to tell you to what extent. I used to wear white socks. That I'm willing to admit to. Don't say anything else.
I don't know if you'll remember.
Oh God, here we go.
I've got a video clip of you.
Yeah. Luckily, it's on VHS and it's not digitized, and no one will ever see that video, Asad.
Well, we can digitize it and we can post it online and do some cyberbullying for you as well.
I'm pretty sure that Shane will agree with me that is cyberbullying, by the way. No, please digitize it. I mean, that stuff, I know it's embarrassing now, but yes, there was we were young, we were kids.
We had, I think it's called it a camcorder, eh?
Yeah.
Those little things you put
Handheld
in your
video
hand. I think
camera.
that was the most advanced technology we had back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays you've got cameras on your phone and things like that. And I do have a recording of you breakdancing and moonwalking and going crazy.
Doing the whole
in
Billie
school.
Jean.
Yeah.
Doing the whole Billie Jean. But listen, back on topic. You mentioned that there were two matters that you're dealing with. I'm
Yes.
familiar with the one, but let's talk about to what extent cyberbullying, where we find ourselves. Because again, I think also I've limited the conversation to some extent, and I'll explain why. Because to a large extent, what I've been doing is I've been talking about mean comments on social media. Someone saying something mean about you, right? You post a photo and someone says, "Well, that's an ugly outfit." And, yeah, my feelings are that's not the extent to which cyberbullying can go. It can go a lot further, and it can become a lot more sinister. Tell us about the one matter.
Yeah, just before I get into that, I would just like to scale back to the comment which Shane sent prior to the break. A very pertinent point. AI chatbots, AI bots, essentially. You know, with AI, you can create a bot which essentially can become a bully on its own. You can set parameters, you can create it, to auto-respond or to post responses on your behalf, to scavenge the internet or certain platforms, find keywords, and use it as a means to launch an attack on a person. So technology has evolved to such a point where you yourself don't have to commit the act of cyberbullying. You can create a bot which can actually do the bullying on your behalf. You know?
And has our laws already caught up to the extent where that type of behavior, where obviously I'm not, so I am the person that obviously initiated the bot to do this. So
Yes.
I'm constantly looking for Asad's posts.
Yes.
And every time you post something on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, then boom, my bot hits you with something. But I'm not
Yes.
actually actively posting the thing.
Yes.
I just told this bot to be rude, to be mean, to be demeaning, or whatever else the case is, every single opportunity it has. So what I'm asking is, has our law caught up to the point whereby if I have to be dragged to court by you, I can turn around and say, I didn't do it. I wasn't anywhere near my phone. You can check my phone records, you can check my laptop, you can check my internet history. I didn't do anything. It was some bot that did this.
Yes.
Has our law caught up to the extent that that's not a defense anymore?
You know, I haven't come across a case in South Africa where a bot or an AI bot was challenged or anywhere else. You know, there could be matters, however, I'm not aware of such. But I don't see why our current laws cannot be utilized to uncover the culprit behind the bot. Because essentially, like you mentioned, you created the bot, you're the author of the bot, you've programmed it to launch attacks. I don't see why a person cannot be prosecuted and will escape liability for creating such a bot. Obviously, we'll have to use some clever legal tactics and tricks to try and invoke different aspects of the laws in order to present a case to court. But it's very much possible. I would like to just, in addition to that,
Very, very quickly, I guess it's a similar situation with that case that's actually being heard right now in the High Court, where a gent is accused of having killed 76 people through an arson in a building, in one of the abandoned buildings in Johannesburg. He, remember, claimed that he initially confessed to the crime because he wanted a warm place to sleep and a safe place a warm, cozy place to sleep in prison. And I saying, I didn't do this thing. I didn't kill 76 people. But ordinarily, someone would say, I started a fire.
Yes.
I committed that. So I plead guilty to arson, but I refused to plead guilty to murder because my intent wasn't to kill these people. So I guess it's similar to that. You started the fire with this bot.
Yes.
You can't turn around and say that this thing posted 76 times.
Yes.
And as a result, I'm not guilty. So it's similar to that type of an
similar, like I said, we'll have to develop and scrutinize the current laws, but the element of negligence would always be there. Obviously, the culpability aspect is present.
You must find us that one, then I'll junior for you on that.
There was a matter I dealt with about a year or two ago, also something along the lines where a fake handle was created on TikTok, right? And AI was used to create an explicit video of a young girl, and it was posted on TikTok. And obviously, it was a fake account, and the person behind the account thought that they could escape liability by creating a fake handle, fake account, posting the video, spreading it amongst, the school, and unfortunately, from there it went viral, and severe distraught was, the child was severely distraught by the video.
And I think just by way of clarity, this fake AI video was a depiction of an underage child that was still in school.
Yes. So to tackle that specific case, we had to do a two-part approach. The first part would have been an application in terms of the Cybercrimes Act, where we would now launch an application against TikTok to give us information as to who the owner of the account is. Obviously, it was a fake account, fake names, fake date of birth, everything fake was used. However,
to try to conceal their identity.
Identity. But remember, all these accounts, and you have something called an IP address, right? Which logs, it logs your IP address, and we can use that to trace locations and depending on what extent and how good investigators we can employ, we can pinpoint it to fairly accurately as to the source of the account.
I think you're being very humble. I think you can get to the point of what room the device was used in to post.
Yes, it is. There are difficulties presented as far as, if you look at it now from a technological point of view. Right. Say, for example, the video was posted or the account was created from an internet cafe. And we trace it to an internet cafe and there's no cameras or anything of that sort. Essentially, we reach a dead end. How do we find the culprit? But nowadays, you see a lot of these students, they don't think so far ahead. From their phone, they would use their phone, they would create a fake account, they'd post all these explicit videos and AI generated content, and essentially they would use their own personal devices, and that makes it a bit more easier to track them down. So the two-part approach would be to bring in an application to get as much information as we can from the social media platform. And then once we've, with some certainty established who the person or who the culprit is, then we would invoke our normal criminal procedure to bring criminal charges. And in addition to that, we could also sue them for bringing a civil application to sue them for damages, emotional trauma, etc.
So going back to this particular case, I mean, and I don't want to be alarmist, but I can think of a couple of things. I mean, by mere virtue of her being underage, that's creation of child pornography.
Yes.
Albeit not,
Yes.
it didn't actually involve the actual human being, but it was a depiction.
Yes.
Albeit through artificial intelligence.
Yes.
But the point is that you're depicting an underage person in a sexual act.
Yes.
That is child pornography.
Exactly.
That's a very severe charge.
Yes, it is. We could invoke many alternate charges based on the creation of that specific video. The name of the act escapes me right now, but essentially it also deals with creation of videos and things like that. It could be a contravention of that specific act.
Oh yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, it's the act that deals with. Of course, it's not called this, but what we colloquially refer to as revenge porn.
Like revenge porn, for example.
Wow.
It could touch on that as well.
Yeah.
And it could lead a person into serious trouble. Especially when we see it amongst the minors.
Yeah.
I think they can't be caught, or they can get away with it. And unfortunately, when the law catches up to them, they find themselves in some serious trouble.
Let's talk about that, Asad, because there's this common belief that you need to be an adult to be able to be criminally charged. No, that's not the case.
Yes.
Once you are over the age of 7, because up until the age of 7, so from 0 to 7, the courts would say you don't have capacity.
You don't have capacity, yes.
So in other words, you don't know right from wrong.
Yes.
From the age of 7 till the day you die, so from 7 till the age of 14, it can be argued that you have capacity.
Yes.
Because by then you should be able to recognize what's right and wrong.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a little more difficult to prove that a 7 to 14-year-old has capacity, but it's possible to do that.
It's possible.
And then from the age of 14 onwards, guess what? You have capacity. No one has to prove that you have capacity, and you can be held criminally liable.
Yes. Obviously, the punishment would be a bit more different.
Yeah.
Diversion programs,
rehabilitative
programs. Yes. You wouldn't take a 14-year-old and chuck them into prison.
With the 28s, the 26s,
exactly,
27s.
100%. It would
but it's not like it's a picnic either in youth detention facility centers, it's a mess.
It is, but it's very much possible, and I think the message that needs to go out there, especially if there's teens or tweens listening to this program. You can land yourself in some serious trouble by cyberbullying, and depending to what extent you take it. If it's something trivial, where you just like picking fun on a fellow pupil or friend or someone you don't even know.
It might be looked at differently.
It might be looked at differently, but if you take it to the extent where now you utilize AI and you create all these explicit videos and you post that online, that's serious stuff.
But I want to touch on a notion. I think you recall the soft skull, weak heart principle in law that we have, right? I want to touch on that with you, but I just want to quickly take a quick break. It's 12 minutes to go before we get to 7 o'clock. And then right back, I want to challenge the good advocate, Asad Sater, on a rule that we have in criminal law. And then I'll explain it a little better when we get back. But anyway, getting back to the conversation. So, Asad, remember I mentioned this rule in law that we call the weak heart or soft skull principle, right? And the whole idea behind that is that I can't come in, say you and I get into a physical altercation. Boom, I punch you. And because you have one or the other congenital defect and you have weak bones and boom, your skull cracks, stabs into your brain and you die, I can't go to court and then say, no, hang on a second. I am guilty of assault. My intent was never to kill this guy. I simply threw a punch, and it was basically his fault that he died. My intent was to injure him. He ended up dying. So I committed assault, but I definitely didn't commit murder. Surely that can also apply when it comes to cyberbullying, because I might be someone that is dealing with deep anxiety, depression, a long list of mental health concerns. And your off-the-cuff comment, hate those pants on you, you got a weird face, look at how fat you are. You know, those types of things that we would sort of categorize as not so bad. They're harmful, they hurt, but, you know, it's not to the extreme. Could drive someone to suicide. I mean, surely under those circumstances, you could find yourself in serious trouble.
Well, certainly. You know, there's quite a few reports and white papers on the far-reaching effects of cyberbullying, where it creates suicidal ideations in the child's mind. You know, unfortunately, some children are not equipped to deal with the onslaught they experience on the online platform by cyberbullying and cyberbullies. And they resort to extreme measures, for example, committing suicide. Yes, you can be held criminally liable for that. You can't say, oh no, my intent was only to just bully her. I didn't expect her to go in or him to go and commit suicide. You know, you were the resultant effect. You created the suicidal ideations in the child's mind. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a very key one, and thanks for clarifying that. I mean, there was another matter that you were dealing with. How does that relate to...
Oh, yes, that was fairly recently.
Yeah.
It involved a celebrity couple in South Africa. They were...
Oh, that one. Yeah, with a blogger, right?
Yes, it was a blogger. Just for the sake of privacy, I won't mention names. But it was a fairly...
But I think for a lot of people listening, they can put two and two together, but we don't have to necessarily go into the...
fairly popular South African celebrity power couple. And, you know, the wife, unfortunately, the child has a bit of an illness. And, you know, the mother has taken to social media to discuss and to reach out to others who have children that suffer from that specific illness, and to create like an online discussion and, you know, like a support group and things like that. And this blogger used that as an opportunity to pounce on the celebrity's child, and use it as an opportunity to, you know, to post defamatory remarks directed at the child. An opportunity was provided to the blogger to remove the offending post, ignored it. We approached the Johannesburg High Court on an urgent basis, and we were successful in interdicting because, you know, the High Court serves as the upper guardian of all children in South Africa. So the court came to the aid of the child, and interdict was granted against the blogger, and the defamatory remarks and comments had to be removed.
And I think that's an interesting one because it's obviously a blogger. It's someone that will claim that they a media personality of some shape or form. I mean, similar to how I have a platform here, that this person is a particular platform. I mean, I take this platform very seriously. I don't take it for granted. I make sure that, for example, I bring on someone that is qualified to speak about these things. You know. But the point that I'm ultimately making is, even then, when you say that this is for freedom of press, and that you can't then prevent me from saying certain things, that in itself is not a good enough excuse.
Exactly.
I said, I'm so sorry for doing this. I'll have to do this, brother. We're just taking a quick break, and then we come back and we wrap up with this. You know, I was thinking about these, and it's a very tough one, right? Because we're dealing with minors. Going back to your first case, it was a minor that was posted by minors.
Yes.
And you know, in as much as it's a horrible thing that these young people have done, and as you said, when you under the age of, when you're a minor, when you're under the age of 18, all too often the courts want to be more rehabilitative. They want to give you another opportunity. Especially for young people that do something really stupid online. I mean, is it straight sanctions, as in you going to jail, brother? You have a criminal record now. Or are you given an opportunity to amend your ways, take down the post, apologize?
Certainly. It's not straight sanctions. Obviously, you've given an opportunity. We always couch our relief in a way where we provide you an opportunity to remove the offending comments or remarks or posts, to tender an apology on the same platform in which the person was defamed. And obviously, take it a step further, you can ask for punitive costs as far as the legal case is concerned. We could bring in another application for damages, depending on how severe it is. The straight sanction wouldn't be just to take the person and just chuck them into jail. Provide them an opportunity to reform, correct the situation, and if they don't comply, take it a step further. Especially if there's a court order in place, you can bring in an application for contempt of court.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can go and open up criminal charges, let the criminal justice system take its course, and let the criminal court determine the sanction.
Because going back to the very horrible example, I guess if it was an adult that, for example, produced the same video and then shared it on social media platforms, I don't think the court is going to say, listen, yeah, there was a naughty thing that you did. Take down that post, apologize, and that's the end of it.
Well, in the recent, in this recent case I did, we didn't go for the jugular, so to say.
Yeah.
We've taken in consideration that an opportunity exists to correct the situation.
Yeah.
That opportunity was provided to the offender to retract those comments and those posts and to provide an online apology.
Yeah.
And comply with that, and the matter comes to an end. Do not comply, and then we're going to take the matter further.
Awesomeness.
Yes.
I said, I will have to have you back, brother. We'll have to end it there.
It would be a pleasure
because
to be back.
I always say this, the coolest attorneys that I know is taking over after this.
Yes, I'm wondering what's going on with the station. It's like the lawyers have taken it over.
Next thing you have a show, yeah.
Yeah.
Shane saying, I think you guys make a great show. Very interesting. Thanks to both of you for your time. Travel home safe. Cheers, Shane. Have an easy-going Friday. Shane, I'm definitely going to have an easygoing Friday. I'm sure you're going to do the same.
Will do.
And all the best for the weekend. But Michael Timvios coming up next. As I said, the coolest lawyer that I know. And he's going to be rocking it. And as always, when I sign off, I always try to impress this dude with the stuff that I play.